even has any gold left. It may have all left the country. And why is it that we can't have an inventory of Fort Knox? Even though we're off the gold standard, you would think that we could have an
go watch Fox News and be happy.
Maybe to find out if all the gold bullion is still there. No, they're not going to allow that. Now, when was the last inventory of Fort Knox? Just out of curiosity to find out whether or not the whole vault's been raided. I'm going to tell you when it was. 1953. That was the last inventory of Fort Knox. We talk about gold around in Tennessee or wherever it's located. Yeah, let's have an inventory of Fort Knox. Whether or not we're on the gold standard or not is ridiculous. That's the people's money. It's out there in Fort Knox. It's the gold bullion. Let's just find out if it's still there, because I think that there may be a problem here. If they're not allowing an inventory since 1953, there must be something very wrong going on.
If you want to interfere, you can interfere all you want, but nobody's going to take you seriously. If you want to make a comment, make a comment. But if you don't like what you hear, just tune away and go away. Instead of having your simian-level comment, which makes no intellectual sense. Go ahead somewhere else and make your noise, but don't interfere with a legitimate QSO. There's 4 stations in this QSO. This is KC2QYM.
So what does it do? It says, we're going to print up all of these bonds. We're going to print up all of these IOUs and all of these bonds, and we're going to send them over to the Fed. And what is the Fed going to do? Well, the Fed's just going to sell these bonds to whatever bank, investment bank, will buy them. That's what they'll do. And at the same time, the Fed is going to generate all of this money, whether it be billions, $1 trillion. The Fed generates this out of whole cloth. You ought to read it. You ought to really find out how the Fed works. It is the ultimate scam for the rich and the investment banks. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you wanted to buy a house at 0% interest, and you just have to go to the Fed and say, well, how about $200,000? I'd like to buy this little house. Oh, are they going to do that for you? No, because they're only dealing with the investment banks. They're only dealing with the big boys who then take that money. They take the money from the investment banks and they give it to the savings and loan banks. Now, what do the savings and loan people do? They take it. By the way, the investment bank only has to hold on to 10% of the original money. That's all they have to hold on to as security. So they give the rest of the money to the savings and loan banks. Now, when you go to the savings and loan, are they giving you free money the way they did the bankers and the investment bankers? And don't you think the investment bankers are bonusing themselves every January 1st? It's quite a system we've got. And that's why I think that the world is headed for a great change. I hope I'm not around when it happens, because it isn't going to happen peacefully. It's going to happen under the cloud of an atomic explosion. And I'm not an alarmist here at all. It's going to happen under the cloud of a hydrogen bomb, and whoever is left after that is going to have to scurry around and try to find what's left of humanity. Now, we're to the point now where the lemmings are already, almost some of them, I mean, the front line of the lemmings, they're already over the cliff. They're already in free fall. What are you going to do? I mean, there's still some lemmings back here, they haven't gone over the cliff yet. But indeed, what are you going to do? Now, as far as population goes, the United States can never have a just society because it's too diverse. That's exactly the thing. We're looking at diversity. The black people, the Islamic people, the Christian right, this one, that one. We're not unified anymore. You think the American people are unified? No way, Jose. The only states that seem to have any coalition for unification whatsoever are California, New York, and part of the Northeast. Beyond that, it's the unification is absolutely ridiculous. They're working at loggerheads in their own interests, like for here in South Carolina. What do you think that they're doing down here? You think this is a rich state? No way, Jose. We've got a bunch of rich people that don't care about the blacks. They don't care about the poverty. They don't care about the crime. The only thing they care about is they don't pay a high tax rate. That's all they care about. And it's a political machine, and it's going to continue. Now, I wish that I could say that I'm exaggerating this on the black side, but I'm not. Anyway, I think, by the way, thanks for coming in. I didn't get your call, but you you make some strong points there. Sound like an intelligent guy. I wrote your call down, but I can't see it now. Anyway, Stanley, I think it goes to you, KD8IUU in the group, K1LEM.
Yeah, very good there, fellas. Yes, that was KB9ZZ, RZ, I believe. KB9RZ. I just missed your name. I missed your name. If you'd come back with that, I just want to comment to Whit there. Over.
My name's Mike here in Fishers, Indiana.
Okay, Mike in Fishers, Indiana. Okay. Indiana's supposed to be a backwards place, sort of like Dan Ratter and K.D. Couric and what's the name of the federal former Fed Chairman Greenspan's wife, Andrea Mitchell, and Dan Ratter. They put down the Indianans like the Southerners, so interesting, amazingly interesting. Of course, sometimes the people in the country have, the people on both coasts seem to have less sense. Okay, horses have more sense to people on the left coast than the right coast. Okay, and the people of Indiana and parts of the South seem to have more common sense than horse sense. So, and certainly there's neither on either coast practically. So, very good. Now that's a broad generalization there, but I just thought I would pass a compliment on to Indiana. When we came through moving from Indiana there, Mike, when we came through in the my wife and I believe it was 1968, we came driving through with our newborn baby to come to the East Coast, and we drove through Indiana, and we got a perfectly non-racial comment made by the toll keeper there. The toll keeper said to us, and of course Obama and K.D. Couric and Dan Ratter would call this a racist remark. We were stopping at the toll in Gary, Indiana on Interstate 90, and he made the comment, the toll keeper made the comment, we asked, is there a hotel nearby? And he says, well, I'd suggest you not stop here. Okay, you could get your head handed to you in the streets. He says, and he gave us some towns to go find a hotel in about 20 miles away. So, as we were still in Indiana, I would believe. So, anyway, and of course, what he was referring to was the blight of Gary, Indiana, and he was finding quite sociologically accurate, okay, about it. Just like it's accurate that Chicago is a self-destroying place because the white donut-eating cops sit there along with the black donut-eating cops and do nothing, okay, to stop the youth gang murder in the streets. Okay, it's just amazing. So we have quite a contrast with the general Indiana mentality that's said to be backwater, and I find it quite not backwater at all. Anyway, let's see. Now, moving on back to what W1IT said, I just wanted to station KD8IUU for ID again. I want to comment on W1IT. I think you've got some you've got a good perimeter around the bells of what's wrong with the Fed and the printing of money and all of that, but there's just some things that are, there's no point in bringing up facts unless they're important, but these are very important facts. The Federal Reserve was formally came out of the closet, okay, in 1913, not 1903, but that is not a big deal.
What it says is there's no such thing as the U.S. ever going broke. There's no such thing as the U.S. ever running out of money. That is a red herring. It's impossible. We've been making money out of whole cloth for a long, long time, and we're going to continue to do so.
Nobody's going to argue with that point. That's a very well taken point there, W1IT, KD8IUU. I mean, K1LEM. Actually, I keep getting your wrong call sign here. Excellent. You have a new call sign, your new old call sign revived. That's kind of cool. Anyway, let's see. Yes, nobody's taking away from that macro point. But there's some, what would appear to be, in your understanding, okay? I just want to give you, so, you know, the poor never get a chance at housing. Oh, they sure do. Plain and simply, the illustrations you gave demonstrate, I would say, a slightly insufficient understanding of what's really going on, okay? And that is that the very purpose of this housing, we created an artificial housing boom. Okay, we created an artificial .com. Okay, we created a real estate reinvestment bust. Okay, these things were created instruments, okay, of economic inflation and deflation. Okay, and so as it turns out, plenty of opportunity was given for minorities to get housing that they couldn't pay for. Okay, the purpose was to even bust them further. Okay, so you're right in the sense that, but now you also made this general remark that it's for the wealthy. These people who are running this are the wealthy. They, in a sense, are wealthy, but in a macro sense, they don't care about wealth. They're interested, they'll destroy wealth by creating false booms and false busts, okay, to destroy the, just like Eisenhower was a participant in the post-war boom, okay, that was fostered by and paid for with artificial money printed by the Fed by World War II. Now, was World War II a necessary war? Without a doubt. Okay, but we also had sort of sown the seeds of World War II with the Fed. Okay, so as it turns, the point I wanted to make, let me see if I can be more articulate here. The missing pieces are that the Fed is actually has this pretext of is actually printing money that's supposed to be beneficial to the poor and the socialism it creates. It actually creates a socialism because it doesn't want the masses to raise up, okay, and have insurrection on the streets. They don't want to have to bring 50 caliber machine guns out to put us down because of our legitimate, of us having destroyed our economy. What they've actually done is they've destroyed free and fair markets.
If you could live into the future, you're going to see something like that happen if the things continue on their current path.
Oh, yeah, well taken point. Well taken point.
The machine guns are going to be on the streets. There's no way that they could not be.
I hope not, but I can't imagine that it's not going to take place because there will be no choice except for the government to have this, this falsely concocted government to have to force its rule. Okay, but what we have is we have an under-government that's actually undermined, and it's not the government that's done it. It's been the Federal Reserve Bank participants that have bribed the best government money can buy. So as it turns out, the Fed was actually formed back around 1913. It was formed immediately after the it was the third it was actually formed, but it was silently operating. It actually financed the Civil War, and the purpose of the Civil War was shown for what it was. It was to destroy capitalism. So it was Republicans, the new Whigs, who stole the original Whig Tea Party label of the Constitutionalists, stole the term Whig from them. That was the Alexander Hamilton. He had the Fed Reserve operating with British money infused into the U.S. government, getting the U.S. government, and then bribing its senators with that money per the Rothschild blueprint. Okay, so the Fed was been in operation since about 1913. The Third Revolutionary War was lost. That was the war of the British. That was a silent war. The British banks.
You're correct.
We won 100%. Two of them. George Washington, Andrew Jackson won his first Revolutionary War, but lost the third one. So the Fed has been in operation ever since about 1913, and they immediately started planning on, plain and simply, taking over the economy of the South beginning about 1913.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. In fact, the British banking houses of funded the South.
It made it illegal for farmers to participate in the capital markets. The Republicans actually destroyed capitalism. They were not. They changed their name to Whig, and then we had to drop our. We constitutional people had to drop our title Whig. And then the Republicans later changed it to Republican, and then they hired the best hireling money could buy, Lincoln, to go destroy the free and fair trade of not only center cotton, but also Iowa wheat. Why the carpetbaggers, after the Civil War, marched on Iowa. Okay, and they confiscated the goods and took all the profits that were being sold by the agri-industry on the international market. 90% of the production since before the Civil War since the founding of the United States to this day has gone for export. It's the only thing that pays for lazy auto workers and lazy auto companies that are artificial industries, okay, under this socialism that they created to just prevent insurrection in the streets. So I agree with WYT. I think it will eventually backfire, and the government who's operated by these bastards, financial bastards,
at the behest of the Koch brothers, all of the unions.
Oh, no, see, that's just a mantra of the, that's just a mantra, a repeated mantra of the left there, W1IT station, KD8IUU. And that's where you and I would disagree.
I did pronounce that right, the Koch brothers.
So now what you have is you have Bernie Sanders. You now have Bernie Sanders' American socialism, or really American communism. Why is it communistic? Why is communism operated? It's operated ever since the Civil War. Okay, why is that? Because the Republican Party, okay, financed the Civil War, and they confiscated all the profits of international agriculture.
I think Stanley's on a soapbox now. He's got the organ grinder wound up, so we'll have to wait for him to finish, because if he's using Vox, I don't think he's taking a breath.
Yeah, what's your name in Indiana? I didn't catch it, but, I'd like to have a name to call you other than your call sign.
Mike, just like microphone, and by the way, I was born and raised in Southern California. I've lived in all kinds of states, and I ended up in Indiana for reasons I won't get into right now, but, the people running the show here, the movers and shakers, the big dogs who look at us like cattle and stuff, all it takes is one asteroid landed on Earth to ruin all their plans and schemes, and we're all going to die anyway. I don't care if you're rich or poor, you can be the richest man in Babylon and still die like a dog, so I suppose the better not the better topic, but an interesting question that should be factored into anybody's thinking is what's the bigger picture?
Yeah, the bigger picture is the total depravity of the human nature and the redemption of Christ. That's the bigger picture, KD8IUU.
Okay, Stan. Oh, God, we got a Calvinist on frequency. Look,
I'm not a Calvinist.
I'm philosophically a Buddhist, but Buddhism is not a religion, so don't get on my back about that. I agree with you, Mike, in many ways, and I agree with Stan historically on what's taken place. What I have tried in my life, which I'm going to be 70 years old come the day after the 4th, I'm going to turn 70, which is going to be a milestone if my neighbor doesn't shoot me first or something, and I don't drop dead of a heart attack before that. But, you get up to the great 70, and if you have not become a philosopher by 70, you never will be. You also have to acknowledge your mortality and not keep trying to live like you're 30 years old. But look, I think materialism is the golden calf. It is, as the there's this thing where you get down and worship the golden calf. Isn't that in the Bible somewhere, Stan? I'm not an expert. Where we all get down and we worship the golden calf.
Pursuing that idea.
But, there are people in the world who live in what we would call, I don't know, one step short of maybe squalor, really. One step short of God knows what. You can go to India. I don't really want to go to India. At one time I thought I did, and I was talking on the frequency here before the big earthquake in Nepal that I really wanted to go to Kathmandu. I just don't know. But it's funny. Well, all the people that died. Now here's something about human nature that really disturbs me. With all the people that died, allegedly Buddhists, I guess, non-Christians, that died in Nepal, the spigot of the news of what's really going on there, and they had two quakes. They had the big one, and then they had another one of about a 7.5 that decimated more of the mountain villages outside of Kathmandu. So they're looking at a mortality rate just from the earthquake of at least 10,000 people. We don't really know exactly how many people died in that quake, and in the two quakes. Imagine, for example, that a quake of that magnitude hit the San Francisco Bay Area tomorrow. Imagine all of the hubbub if even 2,000 people died. Not 10,000, but 2,000. We do not value humanity the way we should. We do not value, because we have these artificial barriers. Well, they're not Americans, right? And they're not Christians, right? And my goodness, they're peasants, right? And they're not educated like us. And we're just going to turn our backs on them because we don't care if they all die. This is fine. As long as the rich and the famous can still find some porters to get them up to the top of Everest, which has become a vast wasteland of dead bodies, toilet paper, and everything else, because the rich. By the way, you know how much it costs to go up Everest? $50,000 to $70,000, and that's just on a good day. Not just anybody that climbs Everest. And the people that have died taking these rich people, these spoiled, materialistic brats of Everest, they've all been the Nepalese people. They've all been people. What do they call them? There's the Sherpa people.
Yeah, but don't you understand that?
Have guided.
Which Western? Don't you understand that those people depend upon the tourism dollar for their economy?
Dumping on the United States.
Peter, trying to hear you.
Just as many people from Europe that have done this.
Whit, do you copy? You're going to give me a second.
We hear that the rich and famous every day. There is a cult of the Oprah Winfreys, the cult of and all the rich and famous, and it just sickens me right where I cannot. You know, who could possibly care what Oprah Winfrey is doing? I don't care what she's doing. I wish that I knew whether or not my friends could afford to send their little children or their teenagers, let's say they're teenagers, to college. And even if they were qualified and they did go to college, would they be able to find any kind of a decent job? Now, I'm not talking about an oil job. I'm not talking about going down to Texas and pretending that you're living in a 5,000 square foot mansion in Texas and you're sipping oil. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking a good, reasonable quality of life, and that's all I'm looking at. People say I'm a socialist. I don't live high on the hog. People could say my whole life I could have done more. I have more intelligence than what I probably accomplished in terms of income. I didn't want to go there. And I finally found Buddhism as a path. Am I a good Buddhist? Am I a monk? No. But anyway, Stan, the way you push your religion, I should push Buddhism sometime. Maybe we could have a beautiful talk about your so-called Christian faith and Buddhism, which more is a philosophy than it is any kind of some kind of a doctrine. And I know you have a doctrine. You only believe, I believe Calvinists only believe a certain elect are going to heaven. And the funny thing about the Calvinists, you know, not to put you people down, but it was determined millennia ago, God knew who was going to get into heaven anyway. So it doesn't make any difference whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. So I find it amazing that the Calvinists tend to push morality at all, because if heaven is the goal and only a certain number of you are going to be entering into that golden city, then what if, a wretch like me, why should I be moral? I should be able to do whatever I want, right? My soul is damned irrespective of anything. But anyway, that's the way I see it. I'm going to get out of here because I've been on the air probably too long. Michael, I think you said Michael. Yeah, I want to thank you for coming in. Very intelligent perspective. And we all knew you weren't from Indiana. I knew you weren't from Indiana. That pathetic piece of garbage, that W09E, is typical of Indiana. And Stan, you're the one that sort of facilitates that dude, that Darren dude.